YouTube, and welcome to the channel. It's Andreas Bjorn, and I'm here today to talk to you about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. The early reviews are in, and apparently it's a good game. I am still a little skeptical because there are no Metacritic reviews yet, and Bethesda was actually trying to hide early reviews of the game, like suppress them, so if it's a good game and there were reviews that were good, why would you try and hide them? But it might have been a thing where it's a DMCA and they just wanted them all released at the same time to be fair to creators, so I'm not sure about that. But yeah, there's also been speculation about it being good because it's Machine Games, but Machine Games' most recent outing with Youngblood was not the greatest game, so still a little skeptical, but Steam reviews are saying that the game is very positive. Out of 628 reviews, 92% of people that are playing the game are enjoying the game, so fingers crossed it's going to be a good one as we see more reviews coming out. One of the reasons I think Metacritic doesn't have a lot of user reviews right now is not too many people probably pre-ordered the game at that level to get the early access, because a lot of games these days have been coming out half-baked, and I know I myself have not been pre-ordering as many games, and I'm usually waiting to hear, is it actually worth getting, is it going to be broken on day one? But it seems like here we might actually have a good, could have been a Game of the Year contender if the Game of the Year awards didn't pass already, maybe take Balatro's spot. But yeah, we got a review here to discuss, and let's check it out and dive in. It's been over 30 years since I wore out my VHS copy of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Since then, the film franchise has been in a state of escalation. Where do you go after uncovering the literal Holy Grail? Aliens and time machines, apparently? Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is the perfect antidote to all of this, one that uses its own figurative dial of destiny to propel us back in time in Indy's prime. The result is easily one of the best indie stories across both games and movies, with painstakingly detailed environments, wonderfully atmospheric tune rating and puzzle solving, a pitch-perfect score, and quite possibly the greatest punch on sound effects in the business. While it does stumble occasionally as a stealth-focused sneak-em-up, The Great Circle is an otherwise grand and gorgeous globe-trotting adventure that left me giddy as a schoolboy. Yes, it's true that bringing Indiana Jones back to the big screen twice after he literally rode off into the sunset was probably a poor choice. But having Machine Games craft an indie experience inspired by all the best games in that development team's past, Bethesda chose wisely. Machine Games' most immediate legacy is the modern Wolfenstein series, and there's certainly some of that on show in The Great Circle. Like The New Order and its excellent prequel and sequel, The Great Circle is first-person and highly story-driven, and I'd wager if there's anyone who hates Nazis as much as Indy, it's the Gestapo-gutting, SS-slaying B.J. Blazkowicz. The Great Circle is not, however, a bloodthirsty exercise in double-fisted, lead-flinging fury. Unlike Wolfenstein, The Great Circle's focus is patient and slower-paced exploration and stealth, where guns are rarely, and barely, a viable option. I'm not gonna lie, I would have liked it to have been more of a shooter, but at the same time, I'm happy Machine Games went out and created something unique that's different, where a lot of modern titles are becoming too samey, copying modern tropes and whatnot. Here we have something unique, and they're really trying to tap into the essence of indie, I'd say. Because I actually watched one of his movies over the summer. It was leaving Netflix, and in it there was a lot of fisticuffs and stumbling around, and it seemed kind of clumsy, and he was picking up like dishes in a restaurant and using them and just whatever he could get his hands on, and it was kind of chaotic, so I can see why they made that decision. That said, with the founding members of Machine Games all hailing from fellow Swedish studio Starbreeze, Machine Games' DNA admittedly runs much deeper than Wolfenstein. For many of the team, it dates back to 2004, its standing and highly acclaimed The Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. Riddick's first-person fisticuffs and adventure elements appear to be having a huge inspiration on The Great Circle, and it's refreshing to be playing a game like Butcher Bay again, particularly when it does with this much verve and commitment to a storied franchise. I'm not gonna lie, I'd never played Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. I was always interested in it and saw it advertised in original Xbox magazines when I was younger, but I was a kid at the time, didn't have the funds to go out and get it myself, and I've never really gotten around to playing it yet, so Might be something worth checking out later on after checking out the new indie game. For clarity, I doubt anybody would have been shocked to see an Indiana Jones game in 2024 arrive as a clone of the blockbuster Uncharted series. It certainly wouldn't have been unprecedented. After all, both 1999's Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine and 2003's Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb both followed a fairly strict Tomb Raider template. Pivoting to pay tribute to the men who usurped lore as the premier grave-robbing vagabond of modern video games would hardly have been surprising, particularly as games today have become increasingly homogenized overall. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, where I'm happy they went with their own different feel, making it a first-person game too. That's kind of nice. I did play the Infernal Machine and Emperor's Tomb and enjoyed both of those, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited to get into this indie game right now. I'm looking to get into some adventuring and exploring some nice tombs and environments and just have that feeling of exploring something that hasn't been touched for hundreds of years, a different civilization. But the Great Circle isn't an Uncharted clone, and it's all the better for it. It's an Indiana Jones game I didn't even know I wanted, and sometimes that's the best surprise. I like highly cinematic, quality third-person shooters as much as the next man, but not every game needs to be one. And besides, you can do a lot worse than taking notes from Butcher Bay, another licensed tie-in with extremely rare distinction of being even better than the film upon which it was based. Now that's something good to hear, that Butcher Bay is better than the film that, it was based upon. That has some good feelings for the potential of this game. Yeah, I plan on picking it up on Tuesday when it releases. The first-person perspective blesses the Great Circle with a fantastic sense of scale, looking up in awe of the Great Pyramid, or staring out at a giant Nazi battleship perched across a mountain in the Himalayas simply has a more pronounced effect at eye level. It also does wonders for immediacy, with puzzle solving in particular benefiting greatly. Picking up and poring over documents and clues, directly manipulating and placing objects, and watching the results unfold in front of your eyes makes it feel like you're personally included inside some of the world's most expensive escape rooms. Puzzles come regularly, and they're mostly light lifting, but I've encountered at least a couple of slightly curlier ones that left me smugly satisfied that I wasn't stumped. If you do hit a roadblock, there's a baked-in hint system that will only interject if you take an extra photo of the offending puzzle with your in-game camera. It's a smart and courteous way of offering aid only when asked that will keep players off their phones and in the game. Now that right there, I find that to be a really nice touch and good, innovative thing for modern developers to do. Because now everyone has access to guides and whatnot, but in order to look something up, if you have to, you gotta alt-tab or go on your phone and search it up, and this way it keeps you in the game, and it's also an optional thing, so if you can solve it without it or you don't want that extra help, then it's not required of you. So I think that's a really cool, innovative thing that the developers have done for this game. On top of this, it's really the best showcase for the incredible amount of granular detail Machine Games has stuffed into the seemingly every surface in the Great Circle, from streak marks on freshly wiped glass to the slow trickle of wax from a candle lighting your way down an ancient stairwell. These are things that wouldn't be noticed from any other viewpoint. Are they entirely necessary to make the Great Circle a great game? Maybe not, but they do paint a picture of a project where no flourish is too small if they make the world look and feel even a fraction more authentic. After beginning with a short flashback to Raiders of the Lost Ark as a tutorial, one that might have been a tad indulgent had it not been so utterly well done, the Great Circle's second level is a wonderful and equally nostalgic trip through Connecticut's Marshall College. It's a magnificent rendition and draped in layers upon layers of bespoke details that distracted me constantly on my way to the objective. Plus another paraphernalia related to the history of the school. Cabinets full of exotic items, notice boards cluttered with handmade signs. If you'd shown this version of Indy's famous school to the 8-year-old version of me who cut his teeth aimlessly point-and-clicking his way around Marshall College in 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure, I might have had you burnt at the stake, or at least lowered into a sacrificial lava pit without a heart. Yeah, that's something I've been hearing about and seeing on social media. It's been making the rounds, the side-by-side comparison of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the boulder scene, and the game. It seems they recreated it almost perfectly in a gameplay sense, so that's really cool and exciting to see, and gives you a good reason to want to get into it because they've obviously respecting the source material. The eye-catching environments keep coming. The ornate Italian architecture and crusty catacombs of the Vatican City, an ancient town and multiple Nazi dig sites in the shadow of the Egyptian pyramids and the Great Sphinx. Soxai's winding waterways and flooded temples, which are being reclaimed by the jungle. It's all excellent stuff, and bolstered by exemplary ray trace lighting to boot. I love the huge contrast between the levels, and the Great Circle as a fanciful, archaeological concept is an admirably effective premise to justify indie hopping all over the globe during a single story. Yeah, I'm really excited to go in and check out the pyramids there. I think that's going to be a neat level, and they got the traditional jungle level going on, so it's nice to hear that they have a variety, though. They got the Vatican, so it's going to be some nice gothic-y, ornate stuff going on there. So I'm really excited to dive in and explore and see everything that they have. As a rule, the Indiana Jones series is always at its best when it involves a desperate race to track down an artifact before the Nazis can nab it for what they believe will be an unbeatable, world-conquering advantage. Those movies were video game fetch quests before video game fetch quests, and the Great Circle naturally embraces it, immediately beginning on the right foot by setting its action in 1937, directly between the events of Raiders and the Last Crusade, as the world simmers towards the Second World War. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I've always liked having the Nazis as a villain in some of these games, like Wolfenstein, and I played some other series, like Blood Rain and Indiana Jones. I think they make for great villains. They got that weird accent and whatnot, and they're easy to hate, so it's gonna be fun taking them down. It's honestly quite remarkable at how convincingly the Great Circle fits into the hole between those two impeccable films, successfully exploiting the odd chronology of the original Indy trilogy that goes far beyond just providing a little extra content on Indy's separation from Marion Ravenwood, too. In fact, one of the greatest compliments I can pay to the Great Circle is that it may well be the best Indiana Jones movie you've never seen. The music, too, is a victory on all fronts, and I love how in sync it feels with the Raiders and the Last Crusade. I was especially thrilled to see the Great Circle crescendo to a showdown that follows tightly in the footsteps of both those films. It still managed to knock me out with a brilliantly unexpected twist. Yeah, so it seems Machine Games is really paying respect to the source material. Todd Howard, too, I guess, so he worked on the story for it also and got really involved in it because I guess he's a big Indiana Jones fan, and he actually had the idol from the Raiders of the Lost Ark on his desk. You can see in one of the earlier development videos for one of his other projects. So it seems that the game is potentially in really good hands. On the topic of knockouts, combat in the Great Circle is satisfyingly brutal without being gratuitously violent, which is in keeping with its family-friendly, swashbuckling adventure serial roots. I love the deeply impressive sound design, which makes every strike sound like a golf club being slammed into a huge bunch of celery. And I love how visceral the fighting is in first person. You block and parry your blows with the correct timing, and deliver quick jabs and loaded up power punches. On top of that, Indy's bullwhip can be used to quickly disarm enemies, and stun them long enough to either wade in and whack them or scoop up their dropped weapons and bludgeon them with it. I enjoy how Butcher Bay adjacent the fighting is, but I'm a little unconvinced by the stamina system that rules over it, which depletes as Indy exerts himself climbing, sprinting, and throwing hands. It just creates pauses throughout the action, where you'll be compelled to wait for a beat, or jog backwards as a gaggle of goose-stepping morons march towards you with their dukes up. I can't really detect what it adds other than something to be arbitrarily upgraded to the point where it's no longer an inconvenience. Now, I've heard other reviewers say that they actually kind of enjoyed the stamina system, which kind of confuses me a bit here, I'm not going to lie, because some people said it caused them to think on their feet more, like it would cause you to look around for objects to grab or something, because you have that limited, so you can't just go in there and start plowing everyone down, and you have to kind of use your head more, like it makes it more like a thinky combat game, so I don't know, maybe this guy was just using fisticuffs, or maybe people who are saying that It is good despite the stamina system, and like it, I don't know, they could be wrong. I haven't tried it myself yet, so I'll have to get back to you on that one. You can let me know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions on it. Combat escalates with your actions, so if you do grab a gun and start blasting, expect all armed enemies in your vicinity to respond with hot lead of their own, and you can't survive this kind of barrage, so for the most part, the best thing to do is forget the firearms. This does, admittedly, create a bit of silliness if you stir up a large enemy's response and park yourself anywhere your attackers need to climb to reach. Ah, yes, good old choke point. You can, for instance, stand at the top of a ladder and clobber the crap out of everyone who climbs it for some time. I would do that in Resident Evil 4. And no one will figure out they have the guns and can simply shoot at you, on regular difficulty at least. But you'd be coloring outside the lines here playing like this. And he doesn't mind leaving bodies in his wake when necessary. But he's not some mustache-twirling mass murderer. You can always fire up Wolfenstein if you need to get some of that out of your system. Yeah, no, I totally get that. That's just exploiting the AI. Yeah, I've heard some mixed opinions on the AI. I guess so it's serviceable. Like, I guess it can be a little difficult with the stealth game. Like, you don't want it to be too good, you know, that it's going to make it no fun. But I've heard some people say it can be mixed. Like, sometimes they act dumb, other times it's pinpoint accuracy. But once they detect you, everyone that has melee and can't shoot you will just run at you in a beeline. So, but that could just be due to the fact that it's melee combat. Like, they can't stand and take cover to shoot, you know, that everyone's trying to come up to you and kick your butt, you know, so what else are they gonna do? On the topic of guns, though, Indy's personal revolver is sadly a big disappointment. I used it all of twice, but both were still total anticlimaxes. The first was an early boss battle where Indy's pistol really shouldn't have been written out of the fight before the showdown began. After placing several bullets into a man's unarmored head, it became clear that shooting this bloke wasn't the way Machine Games intended me to clear this encounter. The second was late in the story, where I thought, there's no point rolling credits with a revolver around in the cylinder, and figured I'd quickly plug two Nazis that suddenly appeared ahead of me in an open elevator. They simply took too many shots to go down. It seems like a weird fumble. The scene of Indy actually using his pistol and taking out the Raider swordsman in a single shot is one of the most memorable moments in the whole film franchise. Revolver rounds should absolutely remain exceedingly rare, but the pistol itself really should have shipped with the consistent stopping power of its cinematic counterpart. Yeah, it's a little disappointing to hear. I have heard the boss was a little wonky in the game too. Like, when you're taking on all these normal enemies and it is kind of you're trying to recreate an indie movie, and then to have this really super gamey mechanic like a boss in a game that isn't, I'm sure it's gamey, but it's not trying to be gamey, like it's trying to be a fun adventure game. I think that they probably could have done without the boss mechanic, or done it a little differently so that maybe it was a chase sequence or something, or you had to hit him off a ledge. I don't know, but something to make it feel a little better and more like it goes with the universe. It also rarely feels logical that high-ranking enemies within the levels can automatically see through the disguises, particularly in Vatican City. It is a mechanic I'm accustomed to thanks to the likes of Hitman, which I'll be clear is another game I love, but it's definitely a little sillier here. It really is total nonsense that a random Italian officer would physically attack a stranger who is, for all intents and purposes, a visiting priest. This is only a mild annoyance though, and to be fair, the Great Circle actually has a very smart approach to difficulty overall. There's a lot more fiddling you can do than just adjust a single setting from easy to very hard. Enemy attributes are split into several categories, meaning you can tweak it so that there are tougher enemies, but fewer of them. Maybe you want to pop up their awareness and make them weaker than wet newspapers. This is something I think I may try for a second run. It's good that these options are here because, on regular difficulty, the stealth is quite basic, enemies have pretty limited vision, and they're easier to sneak past than I first assumed. I definitely became progressively less cautious once I realized I could sneak across seemingly dangerously open spaces as long as I did it fast enough. Yeah, it's really nice that they have the multiple difficulty options. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, where it seemed like the AI was a little like, it could be dumb at times, but I guess so if you tweak it correctly, you can have the experience you want. So if you want it to be more challenging, then I guess that's on you. That said, the Great Circle does allow us to return to previously visited locations to complete all the extra side missions, even after the main adventure is complete, so I may focus on that instead of starting over. I suspect I have many more hours of auxiliary objectives to keep me busy, and only got around to taking off a handful of them on my first run through the story, which took me around 17 hours. That's pretty good, 17 hours. I'll take that for a nice single-player adventure game. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle knows everything about the best part of the storied franchise upon which it's based, from the title card and location fonts to Harrison Ford's finger waggle, but its successes go way beyond its faithfulness to the finer points of the films. With a host of gorgeous and lavishly detailed levels, satisfying combat hinged on jaw-breaking haymakers, and a focus on slow-paced exploration, platforming, and puzzle-solving, interspersed with a handful of high-voltage action scenes, The Great Circle is an irresistible and immersive global treasure hunt for indie fans who have felt underserved by the likes of the Dial of Destiny and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Moreover, it sets itself apart from this decade's increasingly homogenized third-person action games by opting for a classic first-person perspective, inspired by the likes of Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay. If you butt your head against its generally basic stealth systems, cracks will show, but when played as intended, The Great Circle immediately ranks amongst the best Indiana Jones games ever, and its story is closer to Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade than anything that's come after. Some pundits may claim it belongs in a museum, but museums are for dusty old relics you should never touch. The Great Circle doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs on your hard drive where you can play the heck out of it. Yeah, so what are your thoughts and opinions? Are you looking forward to playing the game? I know I've been looking forward to it, and I'm probably going to pick it up. I'm pretty pumped. Everything sounds good. It seems like they've been faithful. Steam reviews are good. There's no Metacritic reviews yet, but I think I gotta at least give it a try. They've done something different here, something unique. Gotta support the developers instead of, Ubisoft pumping out the same games style every year. So let me know what you think and what you want to see next in the comments below. I hope you all have an excellent day and keep on gaming. Stay safe. Bye for now.